Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to another pattern test here. And today we've got another really interesting one to test out. So what we're going to be running today are some of these. The Winchester Super X steel loads. These are the Xpert high velocity steel shot loads. They're 12 gauge, 2 3/4, 1,325 feet per second, 1 ounce of number 6 shot. The first steel kind of more upland game, small game type shell we shot, the Federal Upland Game shells, those really surprised me. They performed really well out of this setup. So I'm really curious to see how these Winchester Super X steel loads perform, because they are the same number 6 shot size. But as for what setup we're going to be using today, we've got the Remington 1187 Premier out again with the stock modified choke. It's a 707 constriction. But as per usual with this series, we're going to go over to the chronograph. We're going to shoot 3 rounds across the chronograph and get our average velocity. And after that, we're going to take them over and I'm going to shoot a pattern at 20 yards, 30 yards, and 40 yards. And then I'll go down and mark all of the hits, draw our circles, and all of that stuff. And then I'll bring you guys in and go over all the information so we can get shot count, pellet count, the pattern density, all of that information to see how these shells actually perform. So first up, let's head over to the chronograph, shoot our 3 rounds, and get our average velocity. Alright, we're set up at the chronograph over here, so let's shoot our 3 rounds and see what average velocity we get. Alright, so now I'm going to head over here and shoot our 20, 30, and 40 yard patterns. There's really not much for you guys to see because you won't be able to see any of the hits on the paper. So I'm going to shoot them. I'm going to go mark our information on the targets, and then I'll bring you guys back in and see the results. Alright, so after shooting all of our targets here, this is our 20 yard pattern. Now right off the bat, I think it's a touch more open than the Federals were. But still, it's a 20 yard pattern. There's nothing that's going to make it through that as long as you lead your shot properly. But in our 10-inch circle here, there's 160 pellets in our core. And since it's 20 yards, I draw a 20-inch circle since everything would be inside of a 30. And within that 20-inch circle, there's 130 pellets, which I do think is a few less than the Federal Uplands did. And of course, we did get one big giant wad hole, and the wad is actually stuck in there. So we'll take a look at that wad here in a few minutes. But either way, about typical for a 20 yard pattern, but I do think it's a touch more on the open side than the Federals were. So now we're over here at our 30 yard pattern. Now I do think we hit just a touch high on the board, but we can still clearly see what we want to see out of this one. Our center area of the pattern here looks really good as far as being pretty even, but we do start to see some opening up and a few voids as we get to the outer edges here, which is to be expected out at 30 yards with a load like this. But either way, in our 10-inch circle here in our core, there's 71 pellets in there, and in our 30-inch circle there's 201 pellets in there. Now yes, we might be missing a couple pellets right up here off the top, so call it 215, 220 if you want to. But either way, I still think we can see what we want to see here. We definitely opened up quite a bit from 20 to 30. But either way, there's not any kind of dove or anything that's going to make it through that as long as you do your part and lead your shot properly. And now we're on to our 40 yard pattern here. And as you can see, I decided to move this circle up a bit because I believe the core is just a touch high on here. It could be centered and just kind of a goofy pattern, but seeing what we've seen already, I do think this hit just a touch high. But either way, we definitely opened up quite a bit here. There's some pretty large voids creeping into our pattern here within our 30-inch circle. Several of them all around here. But as for our core here, there's 49 hits. It's pretty even. It's definitely a little bit more open, but nothing's going to make it through that. There's no gaps in there that are big enough for a dove or anything like that to fly through. But there's 49 pellets in our 10-inch core circle there. And if we back up to our 30-inch circle, there's 160 pellets within that. And yeah, we probably lost a few of them up top here. This is definitely not a bad pattern whatsoever. There's not much that's going to make it through that unless you don't quite lead your shot properly and leave them all the way out here on the very edge. Then there might be a couple things that might sneak through that. But as long as you do your job and lead the shot, there's nothing that's going to make it through that load. But I still think that we see slightly lower pellet counts in that 10 and 30 inch circle than what we did out of those Federal shells. Once again, that might be a good thing, that might be a bad thing, depending on what you're looking for. But either way, this is definitely a pretty even pattern until you get all the way to the edge. Nothing bad, nothing super awesome, amazing, impressive, but then again, it's a good wing shooting pattern. There's really not a whole lot wrong with that at all. That'll absolutely take you doves or anything like that all day long. All right, and here's that wad. I think this is the first time I've seen a brown goldish color wad like this. Nothing really too impressive. It opened up really evenly though, compared to some of the other ones that we've tested so far. But there's no shot or buffer material or anything strange like that stuck down in there. No rips or tears or shreds or anything like that on the wad. Pretty typical, just a little bit different color than what I'm used to seeing. But nothing too impressive to look at here. Alright, well, what did y'all think about those loads? If you've watched the Federal upland shells that we've tested, how do you think they compare to those? I definitely think these are a touch more open, not much, but just a little bit than what those Federal upland shells did. That may or may not be a good thing depending on how you like your patterns, but either way, these will absolutely do the job on your flying creatures like doves or quail or pheasant or anything of the sort like that. But what do y'all think? How did these shells perform in your opinion? I'm definitely pleased with them. They're nothing super duper spectacular or anything impressive or fancy, but they will absolutely do the job. But have you used these loads? Is this your typical load, or do you prefer the Federals or anything like that? Leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts about it. But on that note, I've got a bunch more testing to get back to, so go check out all the other videos on the channel. There's a wide variety of everything, and we're just getting more and more by the day on here. So with that being said, I'm going to get back to it, and I'll see y'all in the next one.